You just love a light bulb moment. Hey, I'm Philosophically Sadie, and I just had a random thought I wanted to share with y'all. So, to introduce myself, I am a mentally adventurous mom of two with the need to speak and no one to speak to. So you are now my Wilson. Come along with me on a wondrous yet boring adventure. Wilson's, things have taken a positively dramatic turn in my life. And honestly, I'm really not sure where to start. I'm having light bulb moments in such abundance that I have needed to be still and listen to them. I have become a witness of unexplainable signs that have unknowingly placed me right where I am now. For decades, I have gone through suffering, but finally, I realized why. God was trying to teach me and guide me, to mold me into who I needed to be to truly find my purpose. And that may come as a shock to some because I have had a very mistrusting and judgmental view of religion. But what has happened in my life and in my soul is undeniable, and I feel called to speak about it. So, where to start? I guess I have to start by explaining how I started to experience the signs that led me here. But when I do, know that I'm not some crazy religious conspiracist. I have not been inside a church or a place of worship since 2007. I hadn't read my Bible or prayed since then either. I had been baptized and felt the feeling of God as a child, but that slowly got lost as I grew, as I experienced and witnessed all of the pain and suffering throughout every facet of society. I was so full of light and desperately wanted to share it with everyone I came into contact with. But the darkness in others overshadowed me, and because I had no boundaries, I kept letting them. I slowly became numb and unbothered by everything bad that would happen. I did not believe in anything. I wouldn't even label myself as an atheist. I wholeheartedly refused to believe in anything that I couldn't physically experience with my own senses. My mistrust was so strong. Until the numbers showed up. Now, we know that God can't guide us directly to our destination, because then we wouldn't have free will. So, I started seeing these triple-digit numbers over and over. At first, I was fascinated and felt lucky. And I was. Every time I would see repeating digits, I would make a wish. And then my wishes started to come true. I won a big bit of money from a scratch-off, and I kept winning. I thought my luck was up. But I fell back into the same patterns and relationships, and the numbers disappeared. Now, I've never been a superstitious person, and I'm still not, but the numbers showed back up was a little weirding me out. I questioned myself. Maybe I'm looking to the numbers as a way of using them for confirmation bias, but I would try to avoid them. I would purposely look away from the clock if I saw that it was close to triple digits. And yet, I would end up getting a notification or going in the kitchen and seeing the triple digits anyway. So yeah, surely that's weird, but everyone probably sees repeating numbers all the time, right? I continued to question myself and the numbers. I began to theorize why the numbers were always jumping out at me. It wasn't just on clocks, but everywhere. On a billboard driving down the road, or on a random total from an old receipt, or being the 444th person to comment or like on a video. The numbers are everywhere, but still, I thought to myself, surely everyone else experiences this too. So, I finally looked it up and found out that they're considered angel numbers, and that many people believe in them. But I just blew it off as just another conspiracy or superstition, and told myself I was blowing it out of proportion, that they are just numbers and there's no meaning to that. And then they stopped for a short while. Or maybe I was just too focused on my relationships that I missed them. But then they came back like a ton of bricks. All day, every day. So I began making wishes again. I told myself, if it's all in my head and I'm putting meaning to something that isn't real, then what's the harm? Making wishes on triple numbers made me feel hopeful and motivated, as silly as that may sound. And slowly, they started turning more into hopes and dreams and searches for guidance rather than just wishes. I started asking for direction and confirmation. And the numbers, they did not disappoint. I noticed that each of the periods of times that I had overwhelming amount of triple digits show up in my life was right before a major shift took place. I started to self-reflect even more on what situations and decisions I was facing at those times. And that's when I realized that the numbers were showing me the way the whole time. But even then, even with that realization, I still held doubt of the supernatural powers that were working on my soul. I still didn't trust and believe. So God had to find an even more creative way to reach me. And the numbers continued with more intensity every day, nearly every time I looked at a clock, or on a random package or label, or in the sky in the shape in the clouds, or in my dreams, or random YouTube videos from a channel I've never followed, liked, or subscribed to. When I started receiving notifications for those videos, at first I thought they were just some weird suggested channel from back in my conspiracy theory rabbit hole days. And I would just swipe them away, not really giving them any thought. But Lord, you were persistent. The videos started out not very regular. But a few months ago, all the signs became so loud. Literal gospel music playing on my Pandora out of nowhere. Of course, the word of God would come to me like literal music to my ears. My angels or guides or the numbers, whoever they are, they have a wild sense of humor because tell me why the YouTube videos, which would always come at random times, always come with messages saying word for word what I was talking or thinking or dreaming about. Over and over, they would throw my words in my face, like my spirit guide was getting annoyed at my blindness. I didn't understand because this past decade, I have been so focused on learning all I could about everything possible, questioning everything and everyone. I thought I was among some of the most open-minded people because I was balanced in all my stances and opinions, because I sought out truth and understanding. But my blindness was not to the external world. My soul was blind. So I began slowly watching those YouTube videos. And at the beginning, the videos were about not worrying and not having trust, and having trust and faith, which I obviously ignored. But then they started getting more specific, more frequent, and more urgent, to the point that I began to feel the need to explore my spirituality. But again, I denied it and pushed the thoughts away and just said, all I need to do is live like Jesus. Be a good person and not hurt people. How could I have ever thought that that's all Jesus is? How naive could I be? And truthfully, I don't even know that much about the rawness of Jesus' story. Only what I remember from Sunday school and VeggieTales. And this got me to the desire that I had to find out for myself. But even still, I kept pushing it off. I kept focusing on other things like my kids and housework, my businesses, and worrying about court and child support and my 9 to 5. I just kept saying, I'm too busy to read, which is crazy because that's what one of the videos told me after I literally said out loud that I was too busy to start reading the Bible right now, that I had too much other stuff to worry about. But that desire to read the Bible began to consume my thoughts so much that I was stuck in brain fog. I couldn't focus on anything and just felt lost. So I broke down and I cried to my mom, who is not Christian and does not share the same beliefs. But she listened to me and encouraged me to follow whatever my soul felt was right. And yet, it wasn't until the next day on the toilet when I was scrolling through Facebook that I had the loudest, most annoying voice possible say, you could be reading the Bible right now, like it was now mocking me. So, I got up. I unburied my Bibles from the bottom of a crate of old memories. They were in a rainbow Bible case, squished together, almost fused into one. So I got them unstuck, and I just looked at them. One from 2003, red leather bound with gold pages, and my name misspelled on the front. The other was pink and black, and also had my name etched on the front. I ended up needing to cook dinner, so I set them down. And I remember thinking at that time, well, at least I took the first step, right? But all through cooking and eating dinner and bath and bedtime, I'd find myself grabbing them, and then I'd get busy and put them down again. But it was as if there was a tether between my Bible and my hand. As soon as I got the kids laid down, what the fuck was this on me? I sat at the dining room table and opened up the Bible case again, and it opened to the bottom Bible, the pink and black one. In it was a bookmark from middle school that opened up to the book of Exodus. But the font and color of the words in that Bible made it hard for me to read. So I put them back down again. I went outside to smoke, thinking, please just show me where to start. Please keep guiding me. Then I went back inside and back to my Bibles. This time, I picked up the red one and said, show me what I need to see. The idea was to just go elementary style, by just flipping it open to a random page and start reading. And would you believe that this book, the one without the bookmark, also opened to Exodus? So I said, okay, I hear you. And I began reading the book of Exodus. I did not realize that the story of Moses was so early on in the Bible, but I found myself engrossed in the story all night. I read all night and into the daylight. I couldn't put it down. I have not read any books with this much passion since learning about childhood development. And I certainly haven't felt the need to read out loud since being forced to in high school. But I sat at the dining room table reading out loud for hours. When I needed a potty or smoke break, my Bible went with me and I continued to read. I read the whole book of Exodus that night. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. The realization that I was acting like the Pharaoh of Egypt, denying God's signs, seeing them so clearly, but not trusting him. And I was laughing and mocking at the signs I was receiving. Even after reading Exodus, I still questioned the signs. I no longer mocked them, but I still do not trust. So God said, read the beginning. You don't have the full story yet. So I went back and I began to read Genesis. And if I'm being honest, it was boring at first. Because anyone who's gone to Sunday school knows that the first few pages of the Bible, so I was just rereading things. And I thought I already knew that. How God created earth and everything in it, and about Adam and Eve and Cain and Abel and the story of Noah and Ark. And then it goes into the lineage of Table of Nations, the sons of Noah and the sons of Noah's sons, which admittedly was so dry and boring. But then Genesis really picked up when Abram came into the book. He just listened when God called to him. And through his trust, God led him to help so many people. In my opinion, he was the OG saint. He was the first guy that God started using to spread his message, his morals and values. Then the Lord's torch, so to speak, was passed from Abram, who was renamed Abraham, to his son Isaac out of deception, and then on to Jacob, who became known as Israel, and then to the last living descendant of the original tribes of Israel, Joseph. The trials and tribulations that these men of God went through has taught me a great deal. And God was right. The context mattered. So then, I reread Exodus and the story of Moses and the Pharaoh of Egypt from a new, more open perspective. I was now reading to learn, to take their moral dilemmas and understand what God was trying to tell me. So I continued to read and read and read. My Bible became my safe haven. I haven't read this much in years, using that excuse that I just don't have time. But God wasn't having that no more. The urge I felt in my soul to keep listening and reading was so undeniable that I even began to pray. I had kept all of this inside, all of this to myself, for fear that my enemies would use it against me, or my friends of other beliefs would shame me. So the first time I prayed silently in my head. I was so afraid to speak my prayer out loud even though I was alone, because saying it out loud meant that I was actually believing all of this, that I was actually changing. But God told me that just won't do. You must have conviction. You have to truly believe. You have to trust me. And now, God knows trust is something I struggle with a lot. But He said, just keep trying. Just keep pushing forward and I'll show you. So this is what I have done. I have now read more than 12 books of the Bible, and my prayers have gotten more intense and more honest. One night during my bedtime prayer, I began to ask Him to save me from all the evil that has a hold over my life, to continue guiding me in the right direction. And His answer was to be a witness, to tell my story so that others can feel the strength of His Holy Spirit, the same as I have. He has shown me that there are way too many pharaohs out here today not seeing His work. He gave me my burning bush moment that night. He told me to lead the people to Him through my story and all of the stories of the Bible. And now, here we are. I'm sharing my story, my testimony. And when I began typing these words out into a script, the clarity was beyond 2020. These numbers and videos and signs, they didn't just start a few months ago. They started years ago. My choice to pursue childhood development was not even really a choice. It was God's way of directing me here, of showing me that I had so much more to learn about people than what psychological or sociological theorists were teaching. Their teachings and my education was just the beginning of understanding people, but that could only take me so far. My biggest question in psychology was, where is the soul and how does it work? And I didn't receive any of those answers. I began to find holes and cracks in the psychology theories because they don't account for how we feel emotions so deeply in our soul. They couldn't really explain why some people die of heartbreak or grief or guilt. So, I have found myself wondering where the connection lies. I began asking friends and family, where do you feel your spiritual connection? Where do you feel your emotions? And I'll tell you, not one person answered that they feel it in their brains, nor in their heart. I feel that God is within each of us, in our soul, whether you believe in Him or not. When God said that He created us all in His image, maybe He meant that more literally than we think. Maybe His energy lives inside of all of us. And maybe if we stopped acting like the Pharaoh of Egypt and start listening and observing all of His mighty wonders that He creates every day, just maybe we can change this world. I strongly believe that emotional dysregulation is the biggest evil that we have yet to find a way to control. And I also strongly believe that it is my purpose to use the struggles and lessons of the people in the Bible, as well as my own, to teach us how to reach emotional maturity and make Earth a more heavenly place to live. Now, because I've taken psychology and understand how extremely difficult it is for adults to change their mindset, I feel that God is leading me to teach the newer generations about His morality and righteousness. I believe that God is telling me that the path I'm meant to be on is to be a Moses for the children. Like Moses, I'm not the most eloquent with words, nor am I the perfect teacher. But I strongly believe and trust that God will continue to give me the words that these babies need to hear. I want to see that every child be able to experience the greatest gift that God can give them, which is harnessing their emotions and passions into positive change and honest kindness. I truly believe that with God's help and the goodness of you Wilsons, I will succeed. I may not be where I want to be yet, but I know that God's got my back. And now I will always have someone to talk to because He is now my Wilson.